Welcome to Mickey, Marvel, and More, Disney news, commentary, and opinion. From theme parks to Thanos and from Skywalker to Skyliner, my family and I will discuss it all. So let's go!
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hello, Mark here, and welcome to another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. Thanks so much for stopping by today to hang out with us and talk about all things Disney. From animation to Star Wars to Marvel to theme parks, if it involves Disney, we have got you covered. We've been receiving a lot of feedback from listeners that Zack is becoming a fan favorite member of the Mickey, Marvel, and More team. I'm going to try not to take that personally, but we definitely have something for those Zack maniacs out there in this episode. Because in this episode, Zack joins us once again in the family chat to sit around the virtual table and talk a little Marvel. Zack and I are going to give you our mini review of the Thunderbolts, and we're also going to give you our final thoughts on Marvel's Phase 5 of the MCU. We promise to keep it tight because Zack and I can easily get distracted like a cartoon dog floating toward a cooling apple pie on a windowsill. And we will get way off topic. But don't worry, we've got all of our notes in front of us and we are ready to go. So let's start this all off like we always do with a little news from in and around the Disneyverse.
Where are you taking these prisoners?
These are prisoners.
Yes, where are you taking them?
I am taking them to imprison them in prison.
He is taking us to...
Quiet! And there's a fresh one if you mouth off again.
First up today, the Star Wars online community and all of the Star Wars related news sites are all abuzz due to one word right now: Andor. Andor Season 2 just dropped its last 3 episodes, including the series finale, and all I can say is, wow. Laura and I finished the series this last week along with everyone else, and I am ready to watch it all over again, including Rogue One. While many popular television and streaming series have stuck their collective landings over the years, in my opinion, few have done it with the finesse and precision that Andor did this last week. The character Andor entered the Star Wars universe in 2016 in the big screen film Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. It was a big first for Disney and Lucasfilm, as this was the first big screen Star Wars project that did not directly involve the Skywalker bloodline. It was a film all about a ragtag group of rebels led by Cassian Andor and Jen Erso to find, retrieve, and deliver the Death Star plans, and it leads us as viewers right up to the beginning of Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. Rogue One was directed by Gareth Edwards. While Edwards crafted a gritty-looking Star Wars universe, the heart and soul of the project was Tony Gilroy, who co-wrote the screenplay with Chris Weitz. Gilroy created characters with deep backstories and crafted them into people we truly cared about. Tony Gilroy did such an amazing job creating the characters for Rogue One that he was tapped to create a series for Disney Plus based on Cassian Andor's backstory. At this point, Tony brought in his brother, Dan Gilroy, an amazing writer in his own right, to help create Andor's stories alongside him. Admittedly, both of the Gilroys have said that they didn't know much about Star Wars and didn't particularly care too much for it. And I have a feeling, at the end of the day, that is what led them to create something so different and amazing, because they weren't sticking to all of the norms that you would expect in a Star Wars project. They really did add grit and put the war in Star Wars. I truly think that Rogue One and Andor together are some of the best Star Wars that Disney has created since acquiring the license. They are definitely right up there with the original trilogy in my book. While the Andor Disney Plus series is an action-packed adventure story like Rogue One before it, neither are really aimed at kids. And while I'm not really trying to sound pretentious here, gets ready to sound pretentious. It really is Star Wars for adults, and not just because of the mature themes. While there are a few, it's really because it is such a character-driven story. We learn so much about these characters along the way that it's almost impossible to not truly fall in love with these characters. And it makes the ending of Rogue One even more impactful and touching than it already was. But don't just take my word for it. In the show notes, I linked a few articles talking all about the Andor series and praising its accomplishments. Let's just hope that Disney takes note of all of this and applies this knowledge to future Star Wars projects.
Hey, turns out I'm free for happy hour. Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and I need to update my resume. Would you put day drinking under experience or special skills?
Fans of the classic Netflix Marvel television shows rejoice! It has been announced that Krysten Ritter is officially stepping back into the leather jacket of Jessica Jones for Season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. In a previous interview, Ritter had stated that she was more than happy to come back to the Marvel Universe if ever asked, and she may or may not have stolen the leather jacket from the set of her Jessica Jones series. Next to Daredevil, I think that Jessica Jones was one of the best Netflix Marvel shows that they ever produced. Based on the ending of the first season of Daredevil Born Again, it was pretty clear that Matt Murdock as Daredevil was getting ready to put together a team. John Bernthal's Punisher was already a part of Season 1 of Daredevil Born Again, and now that Krysten Ritter is coming back as Jessica Jones, could that mean that we're getting the band back together? It feels like we're really building to another Defenders crossover event. For those that don't know, the Defenders are sort of the street-level version of the Avengers. Only time will tell if any of the other popular Netflix Marvel heroes will return to the Marvel Universe. But not you, Iron Fist. Not you. I said popular.
This is not Santa's workshop. It's just one section of a creative world where new attractions for Disneyland are conceived.
Finally today, we're going to talk about the Disney theme park that started it all, Walt's dream, Disneyland. Disneyland Resort is celebrating their 70th anniversary. That's right, it's been 70 years since the happiest place on earth opened. They've got all kinds of new and cool things planned for this celebration. A few of the highlights starting in Disneyland Park are the return of the nighttime parade called Paint the Night, featuring a lot of super cool floats and more than 1 million brilliant LED lights. Also, Wondrous Journeys, the nighttime spectacular with projection effects and music nodding to Walt Disney Animation Studios films. And on select nights, the projection show is enhanced with fireworks. Over in California Adventure, an all-new nighttime show called World of Color Happiness debuts. For those not familiar with the World of Color shows, they are water projection and laser light shows that happen nightly in California Adventure over in Paradise Bay in front of Pixar Pier. Sort of what they tried to do in Epcot with Harmonious, but they failed miserably. The World of Color shows, quite frankly, are the best water projection shows I have ever seen. This new incarnation of the World of Color is inspired by Walt Disney's words from the opening day of Disneyland's dedication, basically starting with, "To all who come to this happy place, welcome." The show will also feature Disney songs performed by popular performers. An example is one of the songs is Rainbow Connection, performed by Boyz II Men. There will also be colorful decorations, special merchandise, limited edition food items, all kinds of stuff. This is just a small sampling of some of the things they are offering for Disneyland's 70th anniversary. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the details. The celebration began on May 16th of this year and will continue through at least next summer in 2026. As you guys well know, most Disney theme park celebrations are slated for 1 year, but generally they last about 18 months. The Mickey, Marvel, and More crew hopes to hop over to Disneyland sometime in the next year to check it all out. And as always, we will bring you a full report.
Are you Tony Stank?
Yes, this is Tony Stank. You're in the right place.
With the release of Thunderbolts Asterisk, Marvel is closing the book on Phase 5 of the MCU. But did they stick the landing? And how do we think Phase 5 went? Well, if we're going to be talking about Marvel, that means only one thing. We are reaching out to our Echo-based studios in an underground bunker in an undisclosed location in Chicago to bring in Zack to the family chat. Welcome back, Zack.
It's good to be back. Let's get to it. We got 2.5 years worth of cinema to discuss.
That's right. We do tend to ramble, so we are going to get right to it. And we're going to say up front, our main review of the Thunderbolts is going to be filled with spoilers because it's been almost a month since the release of the film, and we think that the people that have wanted to see it have already seen it. So Future Mark will come in here in a few seconds and tell you where to skip ahead to get right to the section about Phase 5. But first, before we do that, we'll say spoiler-free, Thunderbolts, we enjoyed it. It was a great film and you should go see it. Agreed?
Absolutely.
So Future Mark will now come in here and tell you where to skip ahead to. Future Mark here. If you want to skip the spoiler-filled review for the Thunderbolts, please fast forward to 2640. Okay, spoiler-filled Thunderbolts review. Zack, you go first.
I think this is exactly what Marvel needed to do to get, I don't know, everything back on track.
Agreed.
People kept saying, you know how it goes with new Marvel film releases. They're always like, oh, this is the best one since Endgame. Like, they always say that. Or like, this one, gets things back on track or whatever. This time they meant it. This time it's real.
Yeah, the comparison point is always Endgame because that's sort of the Marvel Cinematic Universe golden goose.
Well, yeah, that's the last time that everyone can agree that Marvel was at the top of its game.
For sure.
So I think Thunderbolts really does feel like old Marvel. It feels like how you would want it to. And I think it wasn't just in a way where it's like it feels like old Marvel, therefore it is nostalgia. It feels like old Marvel and was still refreshing and new.
Yep, agreed.
Like, this is the first movie they have done where to beat the bad guy and win, it was not punching the way out of the situation.
Right.
It was dealing with their mental health issues and trauma.
Yeah, this seems to be one of the first moves of Marvel to deal with mental health in a film. But I mean, I think they did it in a way that wasn't preachy.
No, I loved what they did. And I don't know, I've seen a lot of people saying this is a top 10 MCU film for me. And I really don't blame them. I think it's worthy. I don't know where it would fall on like my overall ranking. There are over 30 movies at this point.
Plus the TV shows.
Yeah, so I don't know where it would end up for me, but like I do not at all blame you if this is a top 10 for you. I think it's worthy of that.
Yeah, I would agree. It would definitely be in my top 10. It may be somewhere around 5, 6, or 7, somewhere in that neighborhood. But again, I've not really wrapped my brain around thinking about ranking all of these films. Hey, that could be the topic of a future family chat for us.
Oh boy. A comparison that is often made with this movie is it's Marvel's answer to Suicide Squad.
Right, which is pretty generic and not actually 100% accurate.
Yeah, after watching the movie, so like I went into it kind of expecting a Suicide Squad scenario.
Sure.
I mean, I knew no one was going to die because they said they were all going to be in Doomsday.
Yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment when they rolled out the chairs to announce the cast that they were prepared to announce for the upcoming Doomsday Project. Every single person from this film was listed except for Taskmaster.
Oh, Taskmaster. It was a running gag up to the film's release that everyone was like, oh, so Taskmaster dies early in the movie.
Right.
Because Taskmaster wasn't in any of the marketing, like, really.
And they cheated putting Taskmaster in a spot in the trailer where they didn't need to be.
Yeah, it was, I think, quite possibly the worst kept Marvel secret since Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
100% agree. So yeah, Taskmaster is oft in the first 10 minutes of the film. Although I will say that I think that most people did not enjoy this iteration of the character. And quite frankly, I don't think in the cinematic universe, they didn't know what to do with this character.
Yeah, it's a weird character, and it's a weird character to do correctly. Like a character whose superpower is you can copy and be really good at anyone's abilities. It's hard to make that make sense
Right.
in a non-comic book like way.
Right. I mean, they could duplicate things, but they couldn't get the superpowers.
It was a difficult character to get right. Black Widow was not a particularly successful movie, even though this basically is Black Widow 2.
To some extent, it is.
And they wanted to, I don't know, sort of set the stakes and tone by killing a character off really quickly. I understand why they did it. It was just kind of a little jarring and unfortunate to like have it happen how it did, and also everyone knew it was going to happen.
It almost, well, in the theater I was in, it elicited a laugh when it happened because everybody knew it was coming. So let's talk about the characters a little bit. We talked a little bit about them touching on some of the mental health aspects, but what characters do you think carried this film?
I mean, so this was like I said, sort of the MCU's answer to Suicide Squad, but not really, because the characters had a bit more, I don't know, heart to them, and it really was like a ragtag group of the MCU's anti-heroes.
And you really end up caring about these people by the end of the film, and I think that's what really ultimately makes it work.
I mean, I think Florence Pugh's Yelena was obviously a standout.
She's the center point.
Yeah, they knew they had a fantastic actor, and they had a great character. I've seen a lot of people say they already like her way more than they ever did Scarlett Johansson's Natasha.
Well, I think it's because they've given Yelena, I mean, although Natasha did have a similar backstory, they have really shown the backstory through the eyes of Yelena and makes her a much deeper, more interesting character. And I think that's why people like her more.
I think, honestly, I really, really hated U.S. Agent John Walker in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, yes, 100%.
I really despised him.
I didn't, not just because, you know, he wasn't Captain America, and it wasn't because they made you hate him, but I almost hated him on a much deeper level for some reason.
Which is weird, because I feel like I'm in the minority on that, because a lot of people really like him. And this movie, I will say, made me understand that a lot more.
Right.
I think, but I also appreciated that they still kind of made him a huge jerk. Like they didn't really tone that down, but I don't know.
Somehow they turned it into a lovable jerk.
Yeah, I think so.
I think a lot of that credit goes to the actor. I think it goes to Russell's ability to portray the character. And there are times in the film, I've got to say it, where he 100% channels his father, Kurt Russell. But he did a really good job. And I think a lot of the credit should go to him.
I think David Harbour's Red Guardian is a hoot and a half to watch.
Oh man, Red Guardian. He is, yeah. I will say that at least when I watched Black Widow, I almost thought his character was just a little annoying because they were kind of making it a goof. But in this film and the way they've portrayed him this go around, it really works.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like this movie in particular, I really felt the knockoff Captain America of it all.
Yep, it is. And I really enjoyed all of it. And I think we also need to touch on a little bit about the post-credit scenes before we end the review here. So the first one was pretty cute. It was just essentially, they'd been making a joke all the way throughout the film about them being on a Wheaties box. And as a matter of fact, one of the posters in the theater that I saw the film in had them on a Wheaties box, which kind of spoils it a little bit even before you see the film. But the fact that he was, you know, holding that Wheaties box and to the shopper and saying, huh? Because his face is on the box was pretty funny.
They I mean, yeah, they knew what they were doing for the marketing of this movie. They had the whole thing with the asterisk, like, what does that mean? Come see the movie. And
Right.
then, 3 days after the movie came out, they said, if you haven't seen the movie, we're going to tell you what it meant.
Yeah, so let's talk about that part right here. And then, that was a big portion of the end of the film and a big portion of the final post-credit scene where they were dubbed the new Avengers.
Yeah, it's really interesting that this, to me, in a lot of ways, feels sort of like the culmination of something that was set up in Captain America Civil War. Like, we
Yeah.
finally have an Avengers team that is government mandated and sort of semi controlled by the US government.
And that's why in the film you see that Bucky and Sam have had a bit of a falling out because Sam doesn't agree with the government-run Avengers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting, like, why, Bucky would decide to stay on this team. And I think there's a lot of reason for that. I don't think we have time to get into all of that. So I
Right.
think it'll be more interesting to see how that dynamic is going to play out in Doomsday.
Yeah, and I think Bucky's clearly the leader of this group. Do we agree on that point? Or do you think it's or is it just more of a combined effort and there isn't a leader?
I think Bucky is very much the leader of this new Avengers team. He never really got to be Captain America, but I mean, he was already kind of the team's, like, I don't know the right term, not caretaker, but like he was kind of holding all these anti-heroes, kind of criminal-esque characters. He was all holding them on a very short leash. So I think he's kind of watching over them.
I'm also glad that they ended in this film Bucky's political career.
Yeah, the world's shortest political career.
What, 6 months? Was he in the Senate or the congressman? I can't remember
Yeah.
which he was, but yeah, that was a well needed end. I will say that this whole thing with the new Avengers, it's on Marvel because, like you said, 3 days after the film, they are online on media, tearing down billboards, having videos of Sebastian Stan hanging up a new Avengers poster over the Thunderbolts asterisk poster. I mean, so I was really surprised that Marvel themselves went into dropping one of the biggest chunks of surprise in this film all on their own.
I think to an extent they were a little worried about people going to see a movie called Thunderbolts. Like, what? Who are these characters?
Right.
So I think once they plaster these are the new Avengers onto a poster, that second weekend is going to have a lot of people come in.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think it makes sense from that aspect. And also, if you are very interconnected with like the production side of Marvel Studios, you kind of knew that was coming. So
I
like,
suppose.
I knew the new Avengers thing was coming, but I was a little surprised they like revealed it, the Monday after the movie came out.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time that Marvel has always been about shh, no spoilers. But then this time around, they're like, "Did you enjoy the film? It's the new Avengers."
Yeah, it was a big marketing stunt, and I think it worked to their benefit.
It surprised me, but I do think that it worked. I really do.
I think we will need to move on, but I want to mention two more things.
Sure.
For another character that I thought carried the film, I thought Bob / the Sentry.
Bob.
He was fantastic. That actor nailed it.
Yep.
That was such a standout performance for me. I think the Sentry is a really cool character, and
to use his powers, he has to quote unquote tap into the dark side.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it is such a cool concept for a character, and he was very charming to watch.
Right.
It was a true standout performance for me.
100%. And, the fact that he does have to tap into his dark nature to use his powers really lends itself to this group of Avengers.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where they go with him. Like, do we use him as the secret weapon? Is that too dangerous? What happens if Doctor Doom gets his hands on him?
Right. So I guess behind glass, Bob will sit until he is needed.
And then the other final thing I think we should mention about Thunderbolts is you started to talk about it, the final post-credit scene.
Yes, yes, yes. I got distracted with the new Avengers talk because it just totally surprised me. So the final scene, let's go.
So it is the longest post-credit scene in the entire MCU.
Yep.
And if you were watching this post-credit scene and you said, the way that this is written and the way that the characters are acting and the way that it is shot and the pacing and all of that, if all of that felt familiar to you, then you're probably not off base. That post-credit scene was done by the Russo brothers.
On the set of Doomsday.
Yeah, and this like post-credit scene is going to be it is the first footage we have of Avengers Doomsday. That clip is going to be in the movie.
That's really cool. Yeah, both of us, we found that, or maybe I found the article or you found it. I don't remember. We sent it to each other like the day after we had talked about the Thunderbolts. And we were like, that's why the final scene felt different than the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it felt like Infinity War. And
right.
That made me feel so excited for Doomsday. Like, if it's going to feel the same way those movies did, then like, fantastic.
Cinema, hands in the air.
Yeah. So I mean, what that told us is that Doomsday is going to be set 14 months after Thunderbolts. Clearly, Sam and Bucky are arguing, and are the Thunderbolts going to be the first ones to discover that the Fantastic Four are crashing into their universe?
Yeah, or is this the Fantastic Four from the new Fantastic Four film, or is it a different version of the Fantastic Four? I guess we'll have to see.
Who knows? It's very exciting.
So stay tuned to the adventures of the new Avengers and the Temu version of the new Avengers, the new Avengers going forward. All right, welcome back for those of you that bypassed the Thunderbolts review. Now we are going to talk about the Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And for those that didn't know, these films have all been released in phases. So, Zach, break down just briefly what this is all about and how it worked.
So, Infinity Saga was the first 3 phases of the MCU. And what that meant was a way for them to categorize a slate of films that were going to be released between this year and this year. And traditionally, a phase culminated in an Avengers film.
Yes.
So often the movies that would be released in that phase would have elements that were in some ways related to one another and were building towards that next Avengers movie. So it was a way for them to sort of thematically group a section of movies together. And going into the multiverse saga, which is the saga we are currently in, I personally feel like the whole phase idea has kind of lost its meaning a bit because there for a while we weren't really culminating or building towards anything.
Right. Well, I think they lost their way a little bit because they had to change gears when they lost the actor who played Kang.
Yeah, that was a pretty big gear shift for them. So for this discussion, I think it's relevant at the very least to mention Phase 4 in that its sort of thematic cohesion was the idea of legacy and introducing all these new characters post-Endgame. It's basically where is everyone in a post-Endgame world?
Yep.
And then Phase 5 has, I guess, just kind of been a continuation of that.
In a way.
And because things aren't really culminating like they used to be, I guess for Phase 5, you can say that Thunderbolts is a culmination of sorts.
And it is sort of throwing to the next Avengers film, but the next Avengers film isn't the next film.
Yeah, so like Thunderbolts still feels like it's building towards an Avengers film rather than being an Avengers level film itself.
So let's discuss just briefly the list of everything that was in Phase 5. And it was the second largest phase compared to Phase 4. This phase had 15, Phase 4 had 17. And I guess that's because projects because they started including the Disney Plus television shows. So this Phase 5 was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Secret Invasion Season 1, I am Groot season 2, Loki season 2, The Marvels, What If season 2, Echo season 1, Deadpool and Wolverine, Agatha All Along season 1, What If season 3, Captain America Brave New World, Daredevil Born Again season 1, Thunderbolts, and that will culminate with Ironheart. And that means that the Fantastic Four will be film 1 in phase 6. So let's just quickly break down our top 3 films from phase 5. My top 3: number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, number 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and number 1 is Thunderbolts asterisk with a bullet for me.
Kind of unsurprisingly, my top 3 is exactly the same.
I mean, I think that these 3 films were so much better than all the other MCU films in Phase 5. Top 3 TV shows. For me, number 3, Agatha All Along Season 1. Number 2, Loki Season 2. Number 1, Daredevil Born Again. And if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. If you enjoyed the Netflix Daredevil, you will love Disney Plus Daredevil because it is essentially the next season of the original show.
So I also, rather unsurprisingly, my top 3 is exactly the same. And I haven't even seen Daredevil Born Again yet.
Is it just my conviction that sold you on that?
I know I'm gonna get booed and people are gonna throw tomatoes at me. I'm a fake fan. I haven't seen Born Again yet, but
life does get in the way.
Yeah, but like I know it's gonna be the best one. Like I don't have to have even seen it. I just know it will be.
Yeah, I'm prepared to watch it again. It was that much fun for me. I just absolutely love Charlie Cox's take on the character, Matt Murdock, and bringing back all of the fan favorites from the original show. And now they're working on season 2. It's just going to be so much fun. So overall, thoughts on Phase 5 as we wrap up this episode of Family Chat. I think Phase 5 started wobbly, but they did have Guardians. And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 carried the first half of Phase 5. And then it just sort of became a muddled, slowed down mess. And I feel like they sort of stuck the landing, starting with Deadpool and Wolverine. And then, Brave New World was, okay, we're kind of getting back to normal. And then the Daredevil TV series and Thunderbolts just really brought it home. Now, technically, Ironheart is the very last thing that's going to be in Phase 5, but that's been in the can for 3 years now, 2 years?
It's something like that.
So it's a holdover from like Phase 3/4. It's been around for a bit.
Yeah, I think this phase in particular is very tricky. It is a period of transition for Marvel Studios. And you can, I don't know, if you have been watching all of the things they've been putting out, you can kind of tell, you can kind of see it. So somewhat early on in this phase is when, in real time, the actor and writers strike happened.
Right. Most people forget about that.
Yeah, and that really halted the production on things. So if you look at how many things were released in 2023, and how many things are going to be released in 2025, you will notice a startling lack of content in 2024.
Right.
And it's because all of that stuff happened in mid 2023 that halted production, so not much was put out the following year. During this writer and actor strike, Marvel Studios said, hey, we recognize that our content has not been the same. We've been putting out too much, and a lot of it has been not as good as it used to be. So they kind of restructured everything. They said, we're going to refocus our approach to movies. We're going to refocus our approach to TV shows. And some of that change is still ongoing. But the first projects that were affected by this restructuring are the things that have been released this year. So Brave New World underwent a lot of stuff, like a lot of reshoots, a lot of script changes. We discussed this prior.
Yeah, it was a completely different film early on.
Yeah, so it was made, it was finished in the middle of this restructuring. So rough going there. But Born Again and Thunderbolts were made almost entirely post restructuring.
I think it 100% shows too.
Like they're changing their approach, they're refocusing, they're getting things back on track. And if this is what it's going to be like going forward, then I think we're back.
I think that we are. And I will say that having Ironheart as the end of Phase 5, I mean, I guess it's the end of Phase 5, but for me, the end of Phase 5 is always going to be Thunderbolts.
Phase 5 ended up being messy for a variety of reasons, not just switching tracks with Kang.
Sure. That didn't help.
Yeah, so there was a lot going on in the real world that made this era of Marvel Studios particularly rough, even rougher than Phase 4 in some ways.
Yeah.
But if things truly are back on track, Phase 6 and beyond could really be looking up.
I think so. And I think we're going to leave it at that because that is a positive note to end on. We are moving towards the future, and the future is Fantastic Four: The First Steps. A big thanks to Zack for hanging out with us today in the family chat.
Always happy to yap about Marvel for an unreasonable amount of time.
For sure. So until then, we're going to leave the MCU in park.
How old is this milk?
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Mickey, Marvel, and More. A big thank you goes out to fan favorite Zack. Maybe we should make and sell some t-shirts. I don't know. Thanks, Zack, for hanging out with us in the family chat for our Thunderbolts review and our wrap-up of Marvel's Phase 5. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all of the stories we talked about today, as well as links to all of our social pages. We would love it if you would stop by one of our pages and drop us a comment about one of our news stories, or maybe a comment about this episode's family chat, or anything else you'd like to tell us. We would love to hear from you. You can also always use our email, mickeymarvelandmore, all one word, @gmail.com, anytime, with a comment, show idea, or maybe some hot tips for the next horse race. And if we read one of your comments on the show, you will become an official friend of the show. And don't worry, if you're already a friend of the show, keep sending those comments our way. Maybe we'll do what SNL does and start some sort of a 5-timers club and hand out jackets. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, my name is Mark, and this has been Mickey, Marvel, and More. If you didn't, my name is Tim, and you've been listening to the Sandpaper Podcast, Episode 7, The Gritty Details. Come on, you got to give it up for that one. It wasn't too abrasive. Please don't use any coarse language when you write in to complain about this one. Man, that was rough. If you think I didn't go to thesaurus.com for this one, you are just kidding yourself. We'll see you next time.